So everyone is talking about the big news that Bandai Namco Singapore has been purchased by Nintendo, and this is going to be massive for, I would say, certain franchises with Nintendo that we're going to get into in terms of what they can do to help from a support role. Nintendo also broke down why they purchased Bandai Namco Singapore, but I have a bit more to add that I think is going to be fascinating overall for the strength of the Nintendo Switch 2 development teams when it comes to the future of the platform. We also have big updates on Assassin's Creed Shadows and more. So let's go ahead and jump into this Bandai Namco Singapore situation. We'll get into what Nintendo had to say officially, and then I'll break down why this is a pretty big deal, especially for one franchise that Nintendo has. So Nintendo has entered into a share transfer agreement with Bandai Namco Studios to acquire shares of Hirogami developer Bandai Namco Studios Singapore for the purpose of strengthening its development structure, the company announced. As a result of this acquisition, Bandai Namco Studios Singapore will become a subsidiary of Nintendo and continue development operations under the new name Nintendo Studios Singapore. Here's what Nintendo had to say and their rationale for this acquisition. Bandai Namco Studios Singapore was established as one of Bandai Namco Group's overseas bases and is a development company with strong expertise in creating in-game art assets. It has contributed to the development of Nintendo titles, including the Splatoon series, and has an ongoing business relationship with Nintendo. Considering the business record, Nintendo has made the decision to acquire shares in Bandai Namco Studios Singapore to strengthen the development structure of the Nintendo Group. Now, Nintendo plans to acquire 80% of Bandai Namco Studios Singapore's shares on April 1st, 2026, with the remaining shares to be acquired after a certain period once the subsidiary's operations have stabilized. So here's the reason why this is a big deal. They did help out with Splatoon when it comes to support for that game, Splatoon 3, so that is huge, but they also did support for new Pokemon Snap in addition to Tekken 7 and Tekken 8. Plus, they were the original developers that was leaked out there from Doc Trey 81, in addition to other people that worked on Metroid Prime 4 as well. So they have a long-standing business relationship. So when Reggie Fils-Aimé and Nintendo announced that Metroid Prime 4 was coming to the Nintendo Switch 1 in 2017, well, the announcement was in 2017, the studio that was behind it, rumor-wise, but pretty much seems to be then, was Bandai Namco Singapore. So this relationship goes far back. Once again, it is big. New Pokemon Snap is big. Having expertise in Tekken 7, Tekken 8, big type of games. But the biggest deal, and why this is a huge thing, and why I think that this was something that Nintendo wanted, in-game art assets, obviously very important for getting the vibe and the style of a game. You need artists that can create incredible art, put them to the digipens and whatever they use, get those computers going and put it in game and make it look lit. And this Singapore studio has done a great job with that, especially with their help with Splatoon. But Splatoon is the key, and I think that was probably one of the major factors in Nintendo doing this. Splatoon 4 is going to be a thing. There is going to be something with Splatoon coming up, and not just Splatoon Raiders, which I think that they could be helping out with or maybe having some support, but Splatoon 4 needs to be a spectacle for Nintendo. It needs to be a system seller. This is something that could be one of the most anticipated games of all time in Japan if you consider what Splatoon 3 did for the system, and even Splatoon 2 on the Nintendo Switch 1. Splatoon 3 sold 3.5 million units in like 3 days in Japan on the Nintendo Switch 1. It is a massive system mover, system seller type of game with a huge base of millions of people that play. Nintendo needs to shore up and make sure that Splatoon 4 is as good as it can be, visually wise, artistically, gameplay, and I think that because of the development of the Nintendo Switch 2 being several times more powerful than the Nintendo Switch 1, which Nintendo was working off from the Wii U, which, yes, it was stronger, it had more resources, all of that, it was a better system, but the jump here from Switch 1 to Switch 2 is massive and way bigger than the jump from the Wii U to the Nintendo Switch. So I think the developers, when it comes to Splatoon, had a little bit of an easier time going from Splatoon 1 to Splatoon 2, and then from Splatoon 2 to Splatoon 3. But I think that this jump to Splatoon 4 needs to truly bring new modes, more characters, more innovation, better art, better everything. And I think that this studio was brought on not only because of their expertise with a lot of different games that they've been able to work on, but also their expertise with Splatoon and making sure that they have the development resources to get this game out in a timely fashion. And I think that's what's happening with this. Splatoon 4 probably needs to come out within the first 2 years of the Nintendo Switch 2, so I wouldn't be surprised if Splatoon 4 is an announcement next year and maybe it comes out 2027, or I wouldn't be surprised if Splatoon 4 has been in development since 2022, 2023, and they're really just getting it ready and trying to get it past the finish line. I think they've always taken an interest in this studio since the Metroid Prime 4 situation that went down, and even though it didn't quite work out the way that Nintendo wanted, that's okay. They were able to get it over to Retro Studios, and they've still been able to have a good business relationship with this Bandai Namco Studios Singapore. So they're rebranding it, they're putting it in their own team, they already have a good relationship with them, and I think that Splatoon is going to be one of the big focuses for this team in order to help them get that game past the finish line and get it ready for a worldwide launch. Because I think that Nintendo wants to make sure that this game does actually help, I would say, appeal more. I mean, it's good in the West, millions of copies sold, but I think that they probably think that it can do a bit better, especially if they have some pretty revolutionary things for the Splatoon franchise, bigger arenas, more characters that you can use on the screen, more online features, more seamless integration, obviously better, great quality art, 4K, 60 FPS, maybe even 120 FPS. This new development team probably, once again, this is me speculating on this, but based off of what I think, I feel that this new team can help them get this stuff done. So I'm very excited to see where this goes from here. But yeah, Nintendo's going to continue strengthening their development resources because they talked about this. There's a lot of games that need more time to be able to develop, and we're going to do things to help mitigate that. So they got Shiver before, they got Next Level Games, they got Monolith Soft and Retro Studios a couple decades ago, and they're continuing to strengthen that development pipeline and resource to where they can get these games out and have the proper development resources for bigger titles. So what do you guys think about Nintendo getting this new acquisition? And who else do you think that they could go after when it comes to development resources? Let me know in the comment section below. But before we get to the next topic, please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, and click that notification bell to get my videos as soon as they drop. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the next topic here, and we're going to be talking about Assassin's Creed Shadows, because Ubisoft is making sure that they have another quality port on their hands. Star Wars Outlaws was fantastic from a technical perspective on the Nintendo Switch 2, and it's gotten even better since it launched, but it looks like Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be just as high of a bar overall for what they did with Star Wars Outlaws. So Assassin's Creed Shadows will be on the Nintendo Switch 2 in just a bit here, December 2nd, and now Ubisoft has gone into detail about the port, including the confirmation of DLSS and VRR. So DLSS, that's Deep Learning Super Sampling, and VRR, Variable Refresh Rate. So that's going to get you a cleaner image, and that's going to get you a smoother playing game. Now, right out of the gate, all updates will be packed in, with the exception of the Claws of Awaji expansion. However, that's planned for a February 2026 release. Cross progression is supported across platforms, and touchscreen navigation will be available for menus, maps, and the hideout, which is good that they have cross support, because I did play about 15 hours or so on the PlayStation 5 Pro, so I'm definitely going to transfer that over and see how it plays portable and all that. So I like that. So in the overview, we learned that bringing such a large and detailed open world originally developed for current gen home consoles to Switch 2 required one of Ubisoft's most ambitious technical undertakings to date. Project lead programmer Bruno, last name was not shared, had this to say about the project. Quote, "Bringing Shadows to Switch 2 was one of the toughest but most rewarding challenges I have ever tackled. We have to rethink almost everything, from the way the world is rendered to how systems interact, all while keeping the soul of the game intact." Now, Assassin's Creed Shadows targets 30 frames per second in docked and portable modes, and according to Ubisoft, a bunch of code-level work was done over the last few months to optimize and adapt the game architecture for Nintendo's console. This includes modifying game assets to streamline certain technical aspects of the quality without compromising the player's experience or the richness of the game. Ubisoft said the team also optimized certain elements for the ARM processor and downscaled simulation data where needed to reduce GPU load, all while preserving visual fidelity for cloud and cloth simulation systems. Ubisoft decided to use its own solid baked global illumination system for RAM memory reasons as well. Now, other adjustments were also needed. Ubisoft adjusted level of detail, draw distances, texture resolution, and element loading. Additionally, while environmental richness is largely intact, certain NPC counts were reduced in highly populated areas to ensure smooth gameplay. Now, DLSS and VRR are both supported for Assassin's Creed Shadows on Nintendo Switch 2. DLSS uses AI to produce a higher resolution image from the native resolution that's internally lower. In portable mode, VRR will be active to give a smoother gameplay feeling to players. However, since handheld play doesn't have as much GPU power, adjustments were made to image quality, draw distance, and LOD settings to ensure smooth performance. Bruno also said this about the VRR integration. The lower frame rate limit for VRR is typically 40 FPS, but Assassin's Creed Shadows runs at 30 FPS on Switch 2. We didn't want to compromise on that aspect, and so we built a dedicated algorithm that keeps VRR enabled even at 30 FPS, keeping the game as fluid and responsive as possible. Assassin's Creed Shadows does launch on December 2nd, and this seems to be a very good port of the game. I like how they tried to explain what DLSS does for people that aren't paying attention to that or don't know about it, what VRR does, the technical aspects, and actually the problems or more like the technical challenges that come with going from x86 for more powerful systems to a weaker system with a ARM CPU. So you're going to actually have to rethink what you do just a bit. Now, I do think that when they do this type of technical work with the games, I think the developers have a bit of fun with it because they love to be able to play their games anywhere that they want on a dedicated built system kind of for the game and not necessarily swapping settings around with the PC portable or something like that. I think it's something a little bit different, and I think that's where there's the excitement for it, just like we saw with Star Wars Outlaws, being able to play for a dedicated built platform, not like a Windows PC type of thing, but an actual platform built strictly for gaming overall. And it's not necessarily like a Windows computer or something like that. So I think that they take pride in that. They want to make sure they do a good job with it. And I think that Ubisoft realizes that they're going to need the Nintendo Switch 2 when it comes to sales. They're definitely going to need it because it's not like everyone's buying all of their games on Xbox and PlayStation and PC overall. So there is room for growth. There is room to get some more sales. And I think that's what they're doing here with Assassin's Creed Shadows on Switch 2. So what do you guys think about the work that they've put in when it comes to Assassin's Creed Shadows? Let me know in the comment section below. But all right, guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please make sure you hit that like button, subscribe if you're someone new, click that notification bell, and check out my other Nintendo Switch 2 and RPG content like this one here, talking about some of the best Nintendo Switch 1 games.